things are like shame of like guys saying like, oh, hey, I go talk to somebody or I take medication. And I'm like, dude, feel no shame for me. Like, never think that I'm going to think less of you because you're trying to take care of yourself, right? So that's a perspective shifting that like tough sometimes is like, we don't do things on our own. We didn't do anything on our own in the military. So it's okay to ask for help.
Spartans, listen up.
We need to sleep better. So how do you sleep better? Never thought about it before. And so I met Jack, I met Essentia. Pay attention to the mattress you sleep on because it's loaded with chemicals.
Recovery, cooling, and pressure relief, all in one mattress. Up to 60% more deep and REM sleep. Less inflammation, faster bounce back. No toxins, no EMFs, no BS.
My buddy Jack over at Essentia, he's kind enough to give us a code for the Spartan community. That's DECA, that's Tough Mudder, all of us. Use Spartan 25, get a discount. Prioritize your sleep so you can sleep faster, you can do more burpees, you can train more, you can get healthier. When you sleep well, you live well.
Welcome to the Hard Way podcast with Joe DeSena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course, with insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
Joe DeSena here, CEO, founder of Spartan, host of the Hard Way podcast. I got a real special one for you today. I got former Staff Sergeant Pitts on the line here. This is a Medal of Honor recipient, so everybody give me like a little moment of silence or something because he is a badass. Thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for being who you are.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Joe.
So let's go way back. Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I kind of grew up all over New England, really. Like, spent some time. I was born in Massachusetts. I used to spend my summers up with my grandparents up in northern Vermont, like actually further north than like Stowe. Spend my summers running around in the woods. Grew up in New Hampshire some and have settled back in New Hampshire.
Well, no wonder you're tough. My kids all were born on a farm in Vermont, and it makes tough people up there.
He sure does. You got to solve your own problems. Nobody's coming to save you but you.
I'm annoyed. We left to build Spartan, so we don't spend much time on the farm. But those brutal winters and cell service not working and the rain and the clouds all the time, like, and to go to a shopping, to go like you're driving it's a good place.
Yeah, it makes you hardy.
Good term. So you grew up all over, and you always knew you wanted to be in the military? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was a kid, I didn't grow up with like anybody really in the family serving. We weren't like not patriotic, but we weren't overly patriotic. I wasn't raised that way. But I grew up like kind of an adrenaline junkie. Like, I love playing paintball in the woods, riding four-wheelers. I remember one time we came back from playing paintball one time in New Hampshire. We bought a car for $50, drove it illegally back to the house to then take off at jumps until we wrecked it. Like, so that adrenaline sort of thing was with me. And as I was getting to the end of high school there and my friends, it seemed like they were confident and like, this is the next step. You go to college. This is what I'm doing. Didn't know what I wanted to be. My old man was a machinist. My mom was a housewife. My parents would have done whatever they could to help me go to school. But I knew I wasn't going to be a great steward of their resources at that point in time. And some of my friends started to join. And I started hearing about the benefits and seeing what the life was like. And just decided that would be a great use of my time. Like, I didn't want to take a gap year and stick around and work. I wanted to keep moving and building skills. And I knew the military was going to be like a great source of that. I just had no idea how much.
And so right out of high school, you check yourself in?
Yeah. So I signed up halfway through my senior year. I enlisted in January of 2003. And then I think we went into Iraq that March was when the unit I eventually joined. They jumped into northern Iraq in March. I graduated in June and I was out to basic in August. I was 17 when I shipped out.
And you were loving it from the second you got in it, or you were kind of unsure?
I didn't love my first 2 years, because it's a totally different world, right? Especially when you're private. Like, it's a change in mindset from being an individual to now you really are a part of this team. And like, you may not think like your contribution matters in the grand scheme of things, but everybody's going to be doing the right thing. And so I think it kind of took me like that year or two. And I mean, until I kind of became a sergeant, but until I really understood why things were happening the way they were, like why people were being hard on us. They're trying to prepare us for combat. And as I understood my role in the organization to be a contributor is when I really started to love it.
And so take us to that moment where things fell apart.
Yeah, so I was I guess to back up a little bit. Before we deployed, I was stop lost. So I was supposed to get out in August. I had already shipped out to Afghanistan at that point. Fine with me, I understood it. You want to keep people to train together. You sign up, you're there for 8 years. A lot of these guys were, E5s or sergeants that I served with and grew up together and got promoted with together. So I wanted to go with them. We did a 15-month deployment. We're in month 14. We're about 2 weeks from going home. You inherit the battle space from your predecessors, and everybody's trying to move out and do things. We had to break down some bases and contract. So at the end, trying to set up the next unit for success, we were breaking down bases and going to set up a new one at the same time. And it was in the process of setting up this new base that we were attacked. There was 49 Americans in the valley floor. We had about 25 of our Afghan partner army soldiers with us. And we were attacked by 150 to 200 or more enemy fighters. They used the cover of darkness to sneak in at night. People say, well, what about the surveillance? Yep, we had surveillance for the first 3 days that we were there. That was kind of a standard operating procedure at that time, but they knew somewhat. They waited until day 5, and there was a lot of other things that went wrong. But at the end of the day, when the dust settled, we lost 9 guys: Sergio Abad, Jonathan Ayers, Jason Bogar, Jonathan Brostrom, Jason Hovader, Israel Garcia, Matthew Phillips, Pruitt Rainey, and Gunners Willing. And myself and 26 other Americans were wounded. But we held our ground. We were reinforced by a ton of great people. And but that was the end of the deployment for me right there.
That was it. You were wounded.
Yeah. So in the onset of the battle, we were actually up for a while. So you get up every day when you're on patrol like that, or in a vehicle patrol base like we were. You're up an hour to 30 minutes before the sun even is starting to, break the sky, so you can be prepared for a possible attack in the low light conditions. We'd already been up. We'd have been up for an hour. We're getting ready to do a patrol. We had a particularly, say, robust weapon asset with us. We had a tow missile system with us that has really incredible thermal imager. Well, they spotted guys up in the hills to the west of us, and you learn the patterns of life of the locals. Like, we go for recreational hikes. They don't do that in Afghanistan. Like, if anybody's up there, they're up to bad things. We could spot some weapons on them. I had started to work up a fire mission when all of a sudden there was just a burst of machine gun fire. Our position where I was at, was about 100 yards from 100 meters from the main base down in the valley floor. We just pushed out a little bit. There were 9 soldiers there with us. We were immediately engulfed in rocket propelled grenades and hand grenades. I was wounded. 2 or 3 other guys were wounded immediately. Within just a few minutes, we had 2 killed. I was just concussed. I'd been in fights before, but never one where our casualties had to continue fighting. And it'd always been, collect them at a casualty collection point, stabilize them, stay here. We're going to get you out on the first thing smoking. But this, just the volume of fire coming in, like when I finally gained my wits and crawled to another fighting position, I can hear the guys firing all around, and it's just all hell's broken loose. And I sat there and I thought I was out of it for a while until, I thought, looking at the way the fight was going, just, we're all going to die if everybody doesn't contribute what they can. And I was looking around at the guys with me, right? Most of them were younger than me. I was 22 at the time. Most of them were younger, less combat experience than me, and they were all doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing in those moments. And so I'd say it was like my peers, guys like Jonathan Ayers and Pruitt Rainey and even Jason Bogar in that position, like they were continuing to do their jobs. I had to keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, I guess in those moments, or not many of us listening know, but in those moments, there's a bunch of stuff just because you're human going through your head, like, hey, let me go just get cover. Like, let me just go protect myself. But I can't leave anybody behind. I've been trained to do, right? Like, so tell us what's going on in your head.
Yeah, I think that absolutely goes through, but it's also the training, right? Like, it becomes muscle memory. We train in a lot of these things. I was lucky that, I guess I say lucky that I was in other firefights before this. So, I understood that this seemed different. We got to keep going. But it's also like, it's the stories, like the legends of the people that came before you. And like, I had heard those stories of the guys who came before me in my unit. And I watched it happen while I was there. There were guys like, he's since passed, but Sergeant Chris Holbrook, he was shot in the stomach in an ambush in Iraq. He still drove the Humvee back to the base. There was another guy in another firefight. I think his name was Layman. He ended up going to fly helicopters. He took a round through his near the base of his neck. It passed through his rib cage, never touched any of his internal organs, and exited out the other side. He walked himself to the aircraft. And there are stories like that even from the deployment. Like I could rattle off another 20 or 30. And so that kind of just sets an expectation in our minds of like, hey, like stuff gets hard. Like there's no time out here. Like it is ultimate stakes. You got to keep going. And I'd seen it before, and it just it felt like what needed to be done. And the same is like seeing all these guys, because that is right. You're going up against how many millions of years of evolution of telling you protect, fight, or flight in that stance. It's flight. Like guys could have popped smoke, but they were standing up, exposing themselves, or returning fire. And I think that comes because, you love the guys that you're next to, right? Like when we're there, like we love our country, that's part of the reason we joined. But when you're there, that's never going through our heads. It's like, I love these guys and I don't want to let them down. Like they're doing it, I'm doing it. And then you're kind of like pushing each other. There's no conversation going on there. But there's also that trust of like everybody has to like cover your sector, and like everything's dependent upon you holding your small slice of the pie. So you got to do whatever you can.
I guess being responsible for other people gives us purpose and probably pushes us well beyond our comfort zone.
I mean, absolutely. You're talking about like that. How do you decide to go? There was a point in the battle. We'd already been reinforced by our platoon leader and another guy, Jason Hovader, John Brosterman, and Jason Hovader had reinforced us. Another attack came in. Subsequently, ended up everybody at the observation post had either been killed or had to fall back. And I didn't know this till I crawled around. I called over the radio for help, letting them know, hey, I'm by myself. You either send people, I can't leave. I'm going to continue fighting, but like send people or this is over. Well, the entire time that conversation is going on, everybody with the radio can hear the enemy talking in the background on my radio. They can hear the conversation with my commander and me. And they hear him say, hey, there's no one to send. Like, we're taking casualties down here. Like, we just can't. It'll compromise everything. And, I understood that. Like, I got it. Like, we're all in it. But there was one soldier, our junior soldier down there, Jake Sons. He heard that and was like, wasn't asking for permission, said, that's Sergeant Pitts up there. Let's go. And he already knows at that point, we had lost 7 guys. 7 had been killed at the observation post, and everybody wounded. And he still linked up with his squad leader. They linked up with another 2 guys, Sergeant Sean Samberoo, Mike Denton. They fought their way into the observation post, right, and saved my life. And that cost Garcia his. Garcia, another barrage came in, mortally wounded Garcia. And they made the decision to go. And it cost Garcia his life, but I'm here today because of him, because of his sacrifice, and because of Jake's actions, all of them.
Not easy to come home from all that, right? You lost a bunch of buddies. You went through some serious hell. I guess everybody's wired differently, so maybe it was slightly easier for you. But how long did it take to kind of reassimilate?
I think reassimilation, I look at military transition, at least for me, it's going to be a spectrum, like a lifelong transition. One reason being is like, that's just was such a benchmark experience for me that I measure everything against, like loyalty, duty, the way we loved each other, like the way people brought things to their jobs. Being at the end of that deployment, it was hard because I was taken away and I ended up back at Walter Reed, and my unit was rotating home and all my boys were together. It felt like I got ripped away from my family and lost some of them at the same time. There was only a few of us that went back to Walter Reed. I think the downtime, I spent a year at Walter Reed recovering, going through the medical board process, getting surgeries and whatnot. That kind of gave me a chance to like slow roll, because I couldn't move any faster than the Army. I knew I was there for however long they were going to have me. Started making plans. And so like, I was like, I'm going to roll right into college. I know that this isn't good, having any downtime. I say things probably didn't catch up with me until almost 10 years after it. I'd come home, I bought a house, started married, had kids, graduated college, and it's different times this stuff comes back to us, right? Like, I think that a lot of times, like whether it's PTSD or depression or hyper alertness or whatever the other mental challenges that can accompany these things, like a lot of times they're very natural reactions to some very unnatural circumstances. Like, of course, you're going to be hyper alert. You're going to be, sensitive to maybe people questioning your decisions when we're used to making decisions in a fast-paced environment. And so, I think when we encounter those difficulties, like I did, sometimes I was able to overcome some of those obstacles on my own, and sometimes I wasn't. And so that's when you just got to pick up the phone and, call somebody, right? I think there's this disconnect in our country and how we view physical health and mental health. And it's like, they're the same thing, right? Your brain resides in your body. Like, it's based on chemicals and electrical impulses. It controls all this stuff in our bodies. That we should have some more sympathy for when things go wrong up there. And, like you need to rehab an ankle. You might go see a physical therapist because you're not an expert on rehabbing that ankle. Go see somebody who's an expert on your brain. to help you rehab your brain.
Part of the problem is what you said earlier, which was you gave these incredible stories of guys being wounded and continuing on anyway. And so it's, it's a John Wayne thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we can think that life on this side, like I did it when I was in, right? Sitting on the side of a mountain. I remember being in Afghanistan, 21, 22, and being like, if I can get out and make 50 grand a year, you know, at an air conditioned cubicle, life's gravy. And I got out and I realized like life's not any easier as a civilian. It's just a different type of hard. I mean, if anything, there's times where like I feel like more alone. We had a chance to change culture there. I mean, there was that of like I can remember when we first started taking casualties, or the first casualties that I had experienced, they would bring in mental health professionals. Nobody would go talk to them. Maybe the platoon sergeant and the platoon leader, because they're trying to set the example. Nobody wanted to go talk to them. And then there'd be, things of like shame of like guys saying like, oh, hey, I go talk to somebody or I take medication. And I'm like, dude, feel no shame for me. Like, never think that I'm going to think less of you because you're trying to take care of yourself. Right. So that's a perspective shifting that like tough sometimes is like, we don't do things on our own. We didn't do anything on our own in the military. So it's okay to ask for help.
Talk to us about the Medal of Honor. Like people don't understand it. I didn't understand it for years. So talk to us about it and that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, so it's the nation's highest award for valor in combat. Like it's got to be against an armed enemy. I think, when I thought about it before I came in, used to think like, when I was in basic training, seeing it up that ribbon up there, be like, man, I want to go get that. Like, I want to be that guy. I want to be a hero. But you don't understand like what it takes, like what those circumstances are on those days. And I didn't realize that it really is a team. Like, there are instances where Medal of Honor recipients, like, it is just you, man. Like, you jump on a grenade, like, there's nobody. Like, Flo Groberg tackled a suicide bomber. Like, you can't, there's no team where, like, you did that thing, man. But for me, like, it's an individual award for a collective effort. Like, everything that I did was purchased, was, because I had the space given to me by the blood and sweat and lives of the guys that I were with. And, like, so many people that taught me. And so, like, I think in the abstract, like, the medal even bigger, it represents sacrifice and the ideal of what we think we would hope to aspire to be in those moments. So I think when I even I look at recipients as like they were that in that moment, right? And we should all aspire to that, even though we may not be living that every moment of every day. And I think that's where as a society, we created a foundation and created a character development program. And this mainly came out of the Korean War era and Vietnam era, that's wanting to give something back. And they said, let's talk about character. And they, the Medal of Honor is on values of commitment and patriotism and citizenship and those things. And they said, let's, create a character development program around those using Medal of Honor stories. And we've branched out and now we have like citizens honors where we recognize, citizens. They can be kids that have done amazing things. Like we've recognized kids who've lost their lives saving other drowning victims, to people saving people with boats from wildfires. So we've really tried to take our platform and like the best of what we've experienced and seen from our experience in the military of like, look at these incredible people that we served alongside, patriotism and courage and citizenship, and transfer it to the next generation. So they have a framework to make decisions.
So what are you doing now?
I graduated school, got a business degree, got out, worked for corporate America, worked for a couple Fortune 500s, and decided I wanted to go back to school. So I'm back in school right now for an undergraduate in mechanical engineering, because I'm a glutton for punishment.
I love it. And do you miss it? Do you want to, I mean, I would imagine all you guys just miss it, right? You want to get back out there?
Every day that's been gone. Mostly the biggest thing is it's the guy, right? It's the people I served alongside, because I learned so much from them. Like, I mean, there are things I didn't know, like that people from other countries join our military, not to be a citizen, just for a chance to become a citizen. I've served alongside those guys. Right. I knew guys that came from all over different religions. I served along guys who were Muslim, right? And were with me in Afghanistan. And it just showed me how much like that, like just because we're different doesn't mean that we're divided. Different doesn't mean less. Different just means different. And it's that community. And maybe that was one of the things I heard you talk about in your other podcasts is like, I think as humans, like we're animals, we're communal animals, right? We want that. We seek community. And so as hard as that is for us as a community, losing that sometimes when we leave, no, it can't be replicated and it shouldn't be, right? That's also what makes our experiences unique, is that they're not ubiquitous and everywhere, but we got to continue to foster it. And it shouldn't discourage us from trying to find community elsewhere. Cause like I found it, like I've done races like the Spartan race and I did CrossFit and like, aside from the cultish thing, I'm just kidding around, but the community is what I love. Like people cheering each other on, like still being able to be competitive.
Yeah, and in some ways, the stuff that you're just, the stuff we do, CrossFit, you fill in the blank. It's replaced church in a lot of cases for people, right? Or people looking for that community. That, yeah, everything else in life just seems superficial if you're not sweating together, right? If you're not working hard together. My boys wrestle, my girls play soccer, but the boys are in a really rugged room every day. And I find myself wanting to go there and get on the bike and just watch and listen to the music and be in the hot room. And there's something really attractive about it, hard work.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, I think that's also what attracts us to military service, right? Like hard things are the only things that are worth doing. And it's when you start pushing your limits that you realize, oh wow, like I can go further. Like that's now your new benchmark. And that was just one step on your way to massive growth.
What's next for you? You're going to get the degree. And then what?
I mean, right now I'm just enjoying, I help coach my son's football team. So I know that feeling of that you're getting, like I feel myself drawn to it. I'll help coach wrestling. Continuing to give back, stay part of the character development program, continue to try and convey these values to the next generation. Because it can be confusing out there, right? I mean, TV is not a great place to turn to, or media is not a great place to turn to for values. So we have an obligation there to try and pay it forward.
Well, I'm glad you came on. How do people get in touch with you? Can they find you on? Or do you do social media? Or
I don't really do social media, but people can reach out to us through the Congressional Medal of Honor Society or the foundation.
I love it, and we've partnered up. We've got some races we're doing together with the Medal of Honor Foundation, and so I guess we should put the link on here so people can come out and do those races and support you guys.
Yeah, you got one coming up in Fenway, right here in October next month.
Yeah. There's a few of them coming up. We'll definitely put the link out there. I want to get people involved, and not to sound cliche, it is an honor.
No, I'm gonna come down to the Fenway one. That's right in my backyard. So
I'm gonna see you there. You stayed in New England. That's good. It kind of feels like New England looking at the background of where you're sitting. Yeah.